It's precisely 6:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Anjana Dodamgoda, read by Sabrina Zawahir. The headlines. President pledges swift relief to all eligible Aswesuma beneficiaries. UN Population Fund to assist Sri Lanka to modernize statistical system to move towards digital economy. Sri Lanka signed security pact with US to prevent illicit maritime trafficking in nuclear and radioactive material. The newly appointed IGP called over at the President. Sri Lanka honoured with UN Award for Mangrove Ecosystem Restoration. And in world news, Hamas-run health ministry says more than 30,000 killed in Gaza. And in sports news, Sri Lanka unveils squad for Bangladesh T20Is. Now the local news in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has emphasized that swift relief would be provided to all eligible Aswesuma beneficiaries while stressing the importance of government official support in effectively delivering the Aswesuma and Urumea benefits to the people. He made these observations during a meeting at the Matale Wilgamua Divisional Secretariat on the Aswesuma program implementation today. Meanwhile, the President also made a visit to Wilgamua Pallegama Madhya Mahavidyalaya today to assess the educational activities of the students. The President's visit coincided with his attendance at a discussion held at the Wilgamua Divisional Secretariat Auditorium regarding the Aswesuma program. However, on his way to the auditorium, President Wickremesinghe spotted students at the Pallegama Madhya Mahavidyalaya Stadium and took the opportunity to engage with them in a friendly conversation, inquiring about their educational pursuits. United Nations Population Fund Asia Pacific Regional Director Pius Smith called on Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena at the Temple Trees today. The Prime Minister thanked the UNFPA for the support extended during the last 50 years to several areas, including the plans to modernize Sri Lanka's statistical system and upgrading of population data system. The UPFPA Regional Director assured continuous support to upgrade data systems to move towards the digital economy. He expressed interest in assisting programs to enhance collaboration at the national level and advocate for the rights of women and girls. He said he visited Kilinochchi yesterday to assess the issues faced by communities at grassroots level, and there he noted with satisfaction the measures taken with regard to gender violence in homes and outside. Sri Lanka has signed a nuclear security pact with the United States to detect and interdict illicit trafficking in special nuclear material and other radioactive material as part of the efforts to address the growing global security threats. The Sri Lankan Navy signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the U.S. National Nuclear Security Administration at the Navy headquarters yesterday. The MOU was signed in the presence of the U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chang, and the Commander of the Sri Lankan Navy, Vice Admiral Priyantha Pereira. U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chang, says the new MOU between the Sri Lanka Navy and the U.S. Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration will bolster joint efforts to prevent illicit maritime trafficking in nuclear and radioactive material. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing local news, the newly appointed Inspector General of Police, Deshabandhu Tennakone, met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. Upon assuming duties as the 36th Inspector General of Police in Sri Lanka, Deshabandhu Tennakone met with the President. President Ranil Wickremesinghe extended his felicitations to the new Inspector General of Police and engaged in a friendly conversation with him. As a gesture of respect and tradition, the new Inspector General of Police presented the President with a customary memento. Sri Lanka has been lauded with the prestigious World Restoration Flagship Award by the United Nations Environment Programme for its remarkable efforts in rejuvenating mangrove ecosystems. The announcement was made during the 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, emphasizing Sri Lanka's pivotal role in pioneering effective solutions for ecosystem revitalization, crucial to sustaining both lives and livelihoods nationwide. At the UNEA 6th conference held at the headquarters of the United Nations Environment Programme in Nairobi, Kenya. With that, we end the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized Sri Lanka's dedication to maintaining a strategic position aimed at ensuring the absence of major power rivalries and upholding freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean. This was highlighted at the Pathfinder Indian Ocean Security Conference Phase 3 held at Cinnamon Grand, Colombo yesterday. The President said that Sri Lanka's commitment to freedom of navigation has prompted the country to engage in operations as guardians of prosperity in the Red Sea. He underscored the significance of the Suez Canal, particularly evident during the Six-Day War when its closure for 10 years negatively impacted the Colombo port, emphasizing the necessity of ensuring unrestricted navigation. That came to you in main news.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Met Department warned heat index, the temperature felt on human body, is expected to increase up to caution level at some places in the northwestern and north-central provinces and Gampaha, Colombo, Hambantota and Trincomalee district, northwestern, western and southern provinces, and Ratnapura districts, northwestern, western and southern provinces, and Ratnapura and Mannar districts. The heat index is expected to increase up to 39 to 45 Celsius in some parts of the country. That came to you in Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Moving on to the headlines of the world news. Hamas-run health ministry says more than 30,000 killed in Gaza. South Korea has given doctors till tonight to end the strike or face prosecution. Iran launches domestically developed imaging satellite from Russia. Now the world news in detail. The Hamas-run health ministry says that more than 30,000 Palestinians have now been killed in Gaza since 7th October. That number equates to about 1.3% of the 2.3 million population of the territory, the latest grim marker of the awful toll of this war. The ministry says that the majority of those killed were women and children. Its figures do not differentiate between civilians and fighters when identifying those killed. In its daily update on Thursday, the ministry said 81 people had been killed in the last 24 hours, bringing the total to 30,035. South Korea's government made a last appeal to junior doctors to end the walkout with hours left to go before the Thursday's deadline on its threats to suspend medical licenses and prosecute the strikers. Thousands of medical interns and residents have been on strike for about 10 days to protest the government's push to boost medical school enrollments. Government officials have warned that strikers would face legal repercussions if they don't return to their hospitals by today. Russia has launched an Iranian-made research satellite into orbit amid rising tensions with the West. The Pars-1 remote sensing and imaging satellite was launched on Thursdays by a Russian Soyuz rocket from the Vostochny Cosmodrome and will scan Iran's topography from an orbit of 500 kilometers. The Iran's telecommunications minister said Pars-1 was fully domestically developed. With that, we conclude the world news. Prior to concluding, the headlines of the world news once again. Hamas-run health ministry says more than 30,000 killed in Gaza. South Korea has given doctors till tonight to end the strike or face prosecution. Iran launches domestically developed imaging satellite from Russia. With that, we conclude the world news and moving on to development news. The Transport and Highways Ministry said the construction of Sri Lanka's first ever wildlife tunnel to prevent elephant train collision will begin tomorrow in Galgamuwa. They said the number of elephants killed due to train collisions is increasing and it has become an environmental and development issue that has attracted national and international attention. That came to you in development news.
Moving on with sports news.
In sports, we've got cricket. Sri Lanka selectors have named a 17-member squad for the upcoming T20I series against Bangladesh. Wanindu Hasaranga will continue to lead the side, but will miss the first two games due to the suspension he received after breaching the ICC Code of Conduct. Charit Asalanka will be acting captain of the side for the first two games. The opening batter, Avishka Fernando, has replaced Pathum Nissanka in the squad as he is recovering from the injury he sustained during the Afghanistan series. The tour will begin with the three-match T20I series, which will be played on the 4th, 6th and 9th March at Sylhet. That was sports news.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The overall rate of inflation as measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index on a year-on-year basis has further decreased to 5.9% in February compared to the previous month. The CCPI-based inflation was calculated as 6.4% for the month of January 2024. According to the latest report issued by the Department of Census and Statistics, the inflation for all items for the month of February has decreased from 200.7 to 200.6 points, indicating a percentage change from 6.4% to 5.9% from January 2024. That was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, Sri Lanka and Romania have discussed cooperation and investment in new areas and an agreement to prevent double taxation. Discussions were held between Prime Minister Dinesh Guruvardhana and Romanian Ambassador Donas Telas Arihaya on a long-term bilateral relations and economic cooperation between the two countries, as well as the steps to be taken to reach investments in new areas. The ambassador said that Romania will sign an agreement with Sri Lanka to further speed up the trade process and prevent double taxation. That came to you in economic news.
Weather report.
Finally, we take a look at the weather report. A few showers will occur in the eastern and Nuva provinces and in the Polonnaruwa, Matale and Nuwara districts. Showers and thundershowers may occur at a few places in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts in the evening or night. Fairly strong winds, about 30 to 40 kilometers per hour, can be expected at times in the northern, north-central, northwestern and eastern provinces and in the Hambantota district. That was the weather report. Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. President pledges swift relief to all eligible Aswasama beneficiaries. UN Population Fund to assist Sri Lanka to modernize the statistical system to move towards digital economy. Sri Lanka signed security pact with US to prevent illicit maritime trafficking in nuclear and radioactive material. The newly appointed IGP call over at the President. Sri Lanka honoured with UN Award for Mangrove Ecosystem Restoration. With that, we conclude the news and over to my friends and yours. It's a different grouping of friends today. Usually it's Mariela and Navindu, but it is two men behind the mics who's definitely going to keep you in good company with great music until the end of transmission. Of course, over to you, Ramesh, as well as Navindu.